Hello old friends and welcome to new friends. My name is Julia and today I'm making 5 Easter cards that my grandmother asked for. I'm using Crazy Bird stamps from Tim Holtz and Distress Oxide Inks. I ink up my bird with Arcival black ink and stamp twice for a good print. Then I put a piece of masking paper and stamp the bird again. You could absolutely use a post-it note or a paper scrap, because we only need to mask off the top of his head. This bird already has its mask on, and I place the bunny ears from a stamp set with accessories called Crazy Things that coordinate with crazy birds. I pull off the mask and now I have my wonky Easter bunny bird. I do the same procedure 3 more times with this bird and twice with another bird. I stamp him first and stamp another time on masking paper from Gina. I place my mask and stamp the bunny ears, and I just love the bird's expressions paired with the bunny ears. Let's not count how many times I say bunny ears in this video. Next, I'm using a stamp from Gummiapan and embossing powder from Wow. It's the clear superfine to capture all the details. The twig I'm stamping is called Catkins in English, if I'm not mistaken, but please tell me if I'm wrong. I'm stamping it in Versafine Onyx black ink and cover it with embossing powder and heat set with my heat tool. Now, let's make some inky backgrounds, and for that I'm using oxides and some smooshing. I start with Mermaid Laguun, smoosh it on my surface, spray with water, and dip my watercolor paper pieces in the ink. Tim Holtz says, "You get what you get and you don't throw a fit," and I like that saying and the unpredictability of ink smooshing. I dry my papers in between the colors to get them to layer rather than blending. Next up is Twisted Citron, and I put it down and smoosh all my background papers into the color. I was going to go with a rainbow, but I want each color to show, so I limit myself to Mermaid Laguun, Twisted Citron, picked raspberries, and wilted violet. I put down some picked raspberries and do the same procedure as before, and drying between the pink and wilted violet, which is the last color, and I adore how colorful these backgrounds are, and that they still have those white spaces here and there. Now, let's color these gorgeous birds, and I will use 2 colors of Distress Oxide inks for each bird, along with some orange for the beaks and pink for the bunny ears. I start off with Twisted Citron and Rustic Wilderness that I smoosh down on my surface and give them a mist of water. I cover the bird with clean water first to help the colors blend, and then I put my lightest green first, and I use the darker green to give my bird some dimension. The next bird is colored with wilted violet and seedless preserves. I do the same as before, smoosh ink, mist with water, and start with the lightest wilted violet and use seedless preserves to add shadow. These birds already have some shadow, which makes it easier to know where to put them. For the blue bird I used Mermaid Laguun and Tumbled glass. Tumbled glass is a light blue, and I have come to love that ink pad, and I think it's one of my most used Distress Oxides because it works for many occasions. I stamped 2 of this last bird, but I only show the coloring on one to keep this video short and sweet. This bird is colored with picked raspberries and Kitch Flamingo. Since I have that picked raspberries on my glass mat, I use it to color in the inside of the bunny ears. I just drop in some color and use water to blend it out. For their cute little beaks, I used carved pumpkin and blended out with water. Next up, I will color in the Catkins from the Swedish stamp company Gummiapan. I start with the stem and color it with vintage photo, and then I use twisted citron again to give those velvet buds a hint of spring green. And then I go back and add a darker brown ground espresso and a tad of black soot to my stem. And I do the same on 4 more twigs before it's time to fussy cut all my images. I want a layer behind those inky background panels, so I use Onyx craft cardstock and an embossing folder that will give me a wood-like texture. To avoid the cardstock cracking or tearing, I have this small mister, and in it is water and a few drops of fabric softener to help get the best impression possible. I mist my cardstock with that lovely smelling water and run it through my die cutting machine and get these wood grain pieces of paper. I plan to ink up these wood-like papers thoroughly. And first up is Arcival ink, and I just swipe the ink pad over the wood grains, making them more visible and helping them to stand out more. Next up is an oxide vintage photo, and I ink up the edges and blend it in from the edges just a bit. After vintage photo, I ink up my brush with ground Espresso and go around the edges and swipe my brush over the wood grains. And last but not least, I use Arcival black soot and ink up the edges once again. Now, there was a lot of fussy cutting, and I went around the edges of each image with a black marker, and here are all the components to my Easter cards. It's time to put these cards together, and I start with gluing my inky panels onto the wood grain panels. Then I glue down the Catkins twig and snip off anything hanging off the edge of my panel. Finally, I glue down my hilarious bird with his cute bunny ears. My grandmother asked me for 10 Easter cards, and with these cards I have 9 cards in total for this Easter card series, which means I have 1 card left in another video. I finished these cards with a Happy Easter in Swedish, and with that, these cards are done. I hope you enjoyed these mixed media cards and feel inspired. Until the next time, Happy Easter!